When it stops blinking, you're live.
Right, I'd just like to welcome everybody here this morning to this morning's session of our LTP submissions and deliberations, and welcome viewers at home and our submitters. And first up we have Environment Canterbury, and welcome to Ian Mackenzie.
Thanks, Councillor Lovett. I'll be forewarned. John Sunkel, fellow councillor for this area, gives his apologies. We've started deliberating on the long-term plan, and he thought in our interests, he'd be better to be in Christchurch this morning than down here. The submission you'll have all read the submission, so I wasn't planning to go through that. Perhaps just make some additional points. We appreciate the fact that in a lot of areas we're working together, and especially we appreciated your submission to our long-term plan that Neil and Liz presented. That was a very well thought out submission. We appreciate the leadership that you're doing within the Canterbury Mayoral Forum, and particularly Hamish Riak's role as the CE of the CE's Forum for the Mayoral Forum, and Mayor Brown's chair of the Essential Freshwater Steering Group, which I think will probably be a very important role for the Mayoral Forum going forward. We appreciate your support of our biodiversity direction, and Lynette Lynette, your role as the biodiversity champion for the Ashburton District Council, and encourage the council, your council, to work with our council, to work with the zone committee, so that we get alignment in our biodiversity strategy, which seems to me that's likely to most effectively find good use for the monies that the regional council is putting forward for our biodiversity strategy and our long-term plan. We appreciate that you're making moves up at Lake Clearwater to deal with some of the effluent issues up there, and that is clearly one of the priorities of the zone committee and our water strategy. And Runanga, Arawhenua Runanga, who we met with yesterday. With respect to wastewater, we ask that when approving any subdivision expansion, Council consider investments in reticulation of wastewater systems to reduce the potential contamination and risk to aquifers, and increasing reliance on septic tanks is not something Environment Canterbury wants to see. And one of the issues that we do have as a regional council is I think planning. I mean, we'd like to. We submitted into your annual plan, I think, last year, that we would like to be more closely aligned when it comes to planning for urban expansion, because of the effects that might have on existing operations such as the Ashburton Abattoir, and their ability to deal with effluent, and the effects that might have on water quality, drinking water quality issues. We'd like to congratulate you on you and your staff and contractors on the Ashburton River pipeline crossing project. And I think we appreciate the fact that was done so well, and with minimal controversy in terms of environmental effect. So I'm open to questions on any of these issues.
First question is from Angus Mackay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. Councillor Mackenzie, there's a paragraph in here on stock water, and for clarification, you seem to tell us off, or Environment Canterbury seems to tell us off, that we should address the fish screen issue. Fish screens also stop fish from going from the water race breeding ground into the river. And how much lenient time will you give us so we can actually solve the delivery of so-called stock water by other means reticulated throughout the district? while we close the actual inefficient races down. I'm actually asking for, I guess, we've actually shelved the fish screen, this project, because it's millions of dollars and it's only a short time, and we hope to have the water back in the river. So I'm pleading with some practical understanding until we actually solve the delivery of stock water to everyone that wants it throughout the district. So I'm planning for leniency, please, on that compliance issue.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Angus. In terms of fish screens, I think the policy that ECAN has was a fairly blunt instrument, and it's been proven to be very difficult to implement because of getting acceptable designs for fish screens that work, and you'll be aware that RDR spent millions of dollars trying to develop a screen that may or may not work, and there are plenty of smaller takes where effective fish screens are deemed non-compliant. So I think the Regional Council appreciates the difficulty with not only difficulty and cost of installing fish screens, but also designing them for them to be to work. In more recent times, since the new council, we've been discussing actually the need for fish screens as a blanket approach across the region, and although our policy hasn't changed, the discussion is starting to take on a bit of nuance, and that nuance perhaps reflects that the reason for fish screens is to keep the fish in the river so that fishermen have access to catch those fish. But if you're actually looking at protecting biodiversity values, ignoring the values that we have in some of our water races and irrigation channels and ponds as habitat for, especially for a lot of our native fish, it would question whether in fact in all cases fish screens are appropriate. Now our policy hasn't changed, so I'm only reflecting on some of the discussions we're starting to have around the Regional Council table. But certainly the two Tumatao reflected on the fact that there's a lot of, and some of the submissions to the RLTP reflect on the fact that there's a lot of waterways, artificial waterways now within the Canterbury region, which could provide fantastic habitat for especially our native fishery, but fish screens may frustrate the use of that habitat. So I will pass on your comments to yeah, they can do it. Yeah.
Clarification, it's not my comments, it's
Yeah,
council's position.
sorry, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
Yeah.
doing it. So.
Thank you, Ian. We had a meeting the other night, and there's some good trout in the Windermere drain, so that's positive.
Some very good trout.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting that some and that's a result of Fish and Game putting in rock riffles within the Windermere drain to create holes, and there are always trout there, but what used to be a lot of little trout are now grown up into very big trout. So for those enthusiastic fishermen, I could probably for a fee show you where they are. But one of the interesting things though is that actually, contrary to I think perhaps reported opinion, the nitrates in the Windermere drain are still quite high and fish are thriving. So.
Thank you. Any more questions of Ian? No, but thank you very much for coming in and presenting your submission to us, and thank you. Thank you. Julie Laxton, Historic Places Trust Mid Canterbury. Welcome. Sorry, yeah, page 283. Councillors.
Yes. Okay, greetings Mayor Brown and councillors. Thank you for giving this opportunity today to have our say. Heritage has been very well recognised by these councillors I see before me today, and particularly those councillors from the previous term. Namely, I bring to your attention council's involvement in the Allens Road Chinese market garden settlement, the retention and inclusion of Pioneer Hall within the new civic centre and library soon to be built, and the defence of the heritage listing on the Kate's grain store. And there have been others. The Nanking settlement, as you will know, is now a finalist in the Canterbury Heritage Awards. The innovative approach to Pioneer Hall's retention will surely bring future accolades. So thank you, councillors and council staff, for your empathy for our district's heritage. But the work of protecting our important heritage buildings does not stop. Earthquakes, enterprise, the pressure of a fast-growing town sometimes comes at the expense of our heritage buildings, both commercial and domestic. Our heritage schedule needs to be fit for purpose. The current one was adopted in 2014, but work began on this in 2009. Our group was quite involved back then in 2009, and then it kind of sat, I guess, until it was adopted. We'd certainly put our hand up to be included in the next round of consultation, but there are some things we feel need to change, and here they are. So number one, we think definitely the heritage schedule needs updating. We did have 133 listed buildings on it. Well, that's buildings, sites and monuments. We have quite a few monuments. At least 17 of these have been removed due to demolition, probably mainly from the earthquakes. So I'm not saying that we need to replace those lost listings just for the sake of replacing them. Rather what I'm saying is that we have some other unlisted buildings that are worthy of being listed. And I'd have to say there's probably a lot in the county that we don't even know about. Yeah. I'm also very concerned about the redevelopment of our inner town sections. And you'll all be aware of this. This is to the demise of our older villas and our bungalows. There's still some very good examples of these around, and I think it would be good to look at listing some of those. The pride generated in the grants available through listing will hopefully see some of these retained. So point 2, we'd really like the ability to add significant heritage buildings to the schedule within that 10-year period. 10 years is a long time. And things happen. We are not perfect, and we definitely missed buildings last time. Probably the main one that comes to mind is the Bowring Square Methodist Church, but there have been others as well. We also think this should apply to trees, and we had a recent issue at Bar Hill, so I think that kind of highlights that. Number 3 point, we think that there should be a go-to person on council for heritage. That is also for the public to have a go-to person, and for you as councillors to have a go-to person. Marion Martin, our secretary, recently tried to find out some information about Bar Hill and felt like she got shunted from person to person, so we think a go-to person would be great. Years ago, I believe Cheryl Yates did this job, did a very good job. So point number 4, we think that there needs to be a notified process for anyone wanting to delist a building. This does happen for various reasons from time to time. And before your guys' time on council, some significant buildings, including the arcade, were delisted in what I deem an inappropriate and unnotified way. And we would not like that to happen again. So just some process around that, we believe. So thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Thank you. First up, we've got Neil Brown.
Thanks, Madam Chair. When was the arcade delisted? How many years ago?
I'd have to go back to the data. I got in a bit of a tricky situation through the Kate's building because I had said that Mr. Redman asked for it to be delisted. So I'm picking somewhere
Just
maybe
rough,
10
roughly.
odd years ago. I'd have to go back. I got the notes from the meeting, but he had in fact asked it to be moved from an A to a B. But whoever was concerned, people decided for whatever reason to totally delist it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think just on your comment around list more heritage buildings, and obviously someone owns those buildings and they may not want them listed.
That's
So
correct.
how does that work? Where somebody who owns it and's got the skin in the game, so to speak, and then you get an organisation like yourselves and others who want to put a heritage order on it.
Yeah, well, I believe that what happens, and someone else probably about to quantify this more, is that then the owners of the building get approached, written to, or whatever, and at that time I think they can decide that they don't want it, and then it goes to some sort of mediation. So just by us saying, you know, we want that building in. But I think we also have to be very careful that we're realistic. And like I say, it's not replacing the number of buildings that have come off just for the sake of it. It's putting buildings on that are worthy. Recently we did an afternoon tea we do each year for our members, and we went to Northfields, which is Arlene Beard's house in Methven. What a great example of an arts and crafts house. I never knew it existed. You know, it should be in the plan to protect it because it went to the brink and they bought it back. It was someone wanted to demolish it, but it is a beautiful home now. It's restored. So I'm not saying we should slap it on, you know, what we've got left in town that, you know, is not appropriate. But there are other examples, and another one that comes to mind, I don't know whether it's worthy of going on there, but we need to look at is, you've probably noticed there's been an Art Deco house advertised for sale. We have very little Art Deco, but it's probably, I would imagine, a great example of its era. And that's what, you know, we need to be thinking, not just 100 and 120 or 30 years ago, but, you know, times going forward. We need to be looking at some of the houses that are going to be important in 50 years' time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Liz, would you like to?
Thank you. Thanks, Julie. And my question probably leads on from the mayor's, but trying to find those houses. I mean, there'll be lots hidden around the district, and
Yes.
Northfield's hidden by a nice big hedge, so a lot of people hadn't been in there. But are people also aware that council have a heritage grant that can help with
I
something?
think once upon a time, I mean, I live in a listed house, so I know this. They used to send out information about the grants, and I don't know that people are always aware of that. Yeah, it's something that could perhaps be highlighted by council a little bit more, and that, you know, may help some of those places. People want to list their homes for that reason. I think people want to list them, you know, because they're proud to live in a heritage house, or you know, B, the grant funding is definitely an advantage to have. Yeah.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, Julie. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Next up, we have on page 140 is the Bridge Action Group, Stuart Cross. No, we're just moving down.
Yeah, no,
We've got some not
he
here.
got called out on emergency. He won't, yeah.
Okay,
These people not
No, they're not here.
they're not here.
Sorry, the next three submitters aren't here.
They're not here.
They're not here yet. We haven't heard from them to say they're not coming. But we do have,
Council, we just, the next scheduled submitters are not currently here,
They're not here.
so that's why the
we move down to the
Chair
bridge
is looking to the
action.
Bridge Action Group, but if they're not ready, then I suggest we have a recess. Did you want to call a recess?
Pardon. Well, we call a recess for a couple of minutes until we to see who's ready to submit. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We're going live again, and thank you to Ken Ledley for coming on early. It is very much appreciated. So the floor is yours, Ken.
Thank you. I just need a moment to calm myself.
And it's page 335. You'll be fine.
I have a comment in my notes later on that will bear out what's just happened with Councillor Latham. Can I, can I say it's probably evident that I am not or don't have an arts degree. This plan that I have put in front of you was drawn in 2008. And then Mayor Beda Malley refused me the opportunity to actually present it to council. I suspect because I took a gamble on where the new EA Network Stadium would go. And I just missed the mark by a little bit. But anyway, let's proceed. Madam Chair, Mayor Brown, CEO REACT, thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak in this submission process. It's a very valuable tool that you have to work with. As you're well aware, I sat yesterday through the entire day, and there's really significant aspects have come through which you have to try and absorb. There are none so as important as what mine is, of course. So anyway, it's unfortunate that a community distribution summation document presented as the long-term plan was ambiguous in its summations, in its scenarios, trying to steer people into some areas of comment while covertly veiling or avoiding others. Primary points of consultation, as in water meters and pensioner housing, are of minor importance. They are small change in dollar terms compared to other significant spends needing directive. Roading, second bridge, $5 million artfully added to a $50 million no surprises building budget should have been included as major submission subject items. And even now, as the ink is hardly dry on that process, you're diverting attention to another silly sideshow. In passing, I would just say, if we need one, the LTP document seems to carry on itself a banner or a slogan of intent already professed across the community. I wonder how many of you actually know what it is. I thought so. The district of choice for lifestyle and opportunity. To my submission, while it's wide-ranging, it is in the end actually one of simplicity that needs little explanation if you have read it with sincere interest, with concentration and attention to its theory and guidance. Councillors, time has passed for practice of single field consultations, as I've just highlighted. It's unprofessional too for the lead flag of your mail out to propose 50% loss of water as conjecture, basically. You nor anyone else can run a policy and administration on supposition. Nor can you blanket rate for infrastructure installation across a community that has significant areas already catered for by water meters installed at developers' expense. I was a very small player in the field of development in this town, but I have actually given this district council 32 water meters over a period since 1998. And if you look at all of the subdivisions that have taken place in this town since that time, they have had water meters installed. Such a levy, therefore, across the board is tantamount to theft and double dipping. Ratepayers do not get the chance of project development, of quality control, nor peer review of installations. They should not, therefore, carry the can of low-grade infrastructure. A more honest pursuit would be a few strategically placed wraparound external flow sensors, which have been on the market for a long time, on the network and paid for from the Consolidated Fund. In assuming you have read my statement, you will see I draw common linkages to many of the projects now on the books, and it's time for you to join the dots appropriately. The dots of past various consultations make the whole of a community strategy, and they're not being given sufficient thought nor strategic connection. I don't intend to present again through that document. I could have actually written a book. Because of the time that you allow us, it was longer than it should have been. Indeed, I'll probably receive comments that it was too wordy anyway. However, that is as it is. So I don't intend to present that again, but let me say that the administration building and the library is the linchpin of a big picture that ties much other opportunity to it. Broadest possible concepts of dreaming and vision for that facility to cater to all sectors of society and consumers will positively impact and influence functioning habit in the town. I don't need to labour the point, but I do. A visitor booth, information centre, ticketing office, free Wi-Fi, and I'm sure there are further pragmatic amenities needed to be in the mix for the new administration building and library as a must. Those add-ons will in themselves have a natural diversion of traffic onto the East Street retail platform. And let's not lose sight of the opportunity that East and Archibald beside West and Malcolm Streets are the natural corridor of 4 lanes and only lack the amenity of a second bridge. That bridge location, as per the plan in front of you, also invites a simple roading extension and solution out of the top of the Riverside Industrial Park onto Alfred Forest Road, thus easing the Moore Street congestion. Get a military installed Bailey Bridge underway now, and congestion will be eased before Christmas. Such concept, as evidenced by the plan, is using the Racecourse Road and Crompton Street crossings as conduits to divide traffic flow and means just one property, I repeat, just one property, is seriously impacted by a new bridge route. Install such a bridge now and then take the opportunity to prove to NZTA that they need to give us a more permanent fix because it actually works. On achieving that sensible and feasible solution to traffic management, things like campervan parking pads are possible without destruction of trees in the area between the Havelock Street lights and the drive-through post box. There's probably scope too for bus parks in front of the Methodist Church. Those things will effectively encourage travelling public into the town centre rather than staying on West Street. They will come onto the boulevard and shopping on the new streetscape in the town. All of that, of course, is on the same street as the new liquid laundry and the waste dump station already installed. The time's coming for a parking building. Land area around Sparrows, Paper Plus, Harcourts and DE Marine is strategically well placed amid many branches of the retail precinct. It is accessible too from Moore Street and Tankard Street and likely has minimal impact on current commerce in that area. There'd be an opportunity for some ground floor shopping and a parking building on top of it. None of these things happen tomorrow, but we need to be planning for those sorts of developments over a long period. Again, the time is coming when a commuter train boarding platform opposite the museum and art gallery will be a necessity for the day of the high-speed commuter rail services. That development will have to integrate adjacent parking spaces and pedestrian crossing to service both the railway station and museum art gallery patrons. While much talk focuses on greater convenience of passageway through Ashburton, we must also be promoting our place as a destination. To that end, we lack high-class accommodation. Councillors, there's a need to be advocating for a national hotel chain to be established probably in a multi-storey facility on the disused post office next to Phillips Motors, facing into Barring Square East to put tourism visitors into the centre of our town. We also have a compelling need for a durable, continually evolving, far-sighted, visionary strategy to bring together all of the essentials and facets of our community. We would be well served, Mr. Mayor, to have your appointed community-focused citizens think tank to dream simple, but dream practical and dream sensibly big for the next 50 years to bring in the best solutions for us all. Councillors, the last 2 days have been absolutely edifying, absorbing. Beside listening to submitters, I'd like you to have read all of the submissions. Indeed, I have read them twice. There's probably nobody else in town that's done that. They're not easy. They are, though, rich in subject matter and demand much concentration. I'm disappointed that many have not given you the courtesy of clarity and expression, nor neatness and readability to make your job a little bit easier. Some contribute little more than a niggle. Others have clearly enunciated aspirational goal intentions and an uncomplicated sense of guidance. Others are very technical. You must take notice of and act on them. For mine, albeit more than likely to be mocked by some of you for wordiness, is an explicit story of sensibilities. It comes as a manifesto and a proposal of cost-effective vision, of practical simplicity that will go a long way to resolving residential and traveller angst and flow on the town thoroughfare and will take us forward positively. Mr. Mayor, in recent times, in the blink of an eye, or maybe was that a wink of insistence, as a consequence of lobbying to council, you revisited the library location, albeit in the end to no change. On another occasion, you finally saw the impossibility of relocation of the East Street water feature, and you quickly overturned the decision to move it. In a third, under pressure from consumer patrons, you bowed down and you backed down from moving the Domain Bowling Club pavilion away from its traditional headquarters. So these are pragmatic illustrations of facts to emphasise that it's never, ever too late to change a wrong decision. So let's see you again give a blink of the eye. Abandon Chalmers Avenue, avoid for a second bridge location, and in the immediate commission installation of a Bailey Bridge connecting West Street and Malcolm Street. Don't come up with the argument that you can't do it because it's a state highway. They are local streets at the end of the street. You can do it. And don't put up barriers on what may or may not be technical imperfections of a layman's drawing, but adopt the principle of a plan that impacts just one property, creates release for congestion of traffic flow, and offers immediate outcomes of alternatives in route corridors. Further than that, this easy solution needs adoption before realignment plans get underway for the Tynwald corridor. This is urgent. I challenge you all as a council to study my proposal again. Address an uncomplicated design, adopt a minimalistic cost scheme that it is, and engage the army. I produced this plan in 2008. The then Mayor O'Malley refused me the Citizens Forum to present this concept. Please, let's not repeat such myopic muscle.
Thank you very much for your inspirational speech there and making us thinking about our future for the town. Have we got any questions? I'll take a couple of quick ones here.
Well,
Thank you, John.
They don't need to be quick.
Yeah.
There's no one else coming.
John?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question I have is, you say you've been, in your developing days, you installed water meters going back to 1998. That's over 20 years of those water meters. Those original, do you know if those original water meters are still working or how long they lasted? Because from what we've heard to date, we're getting some people who say the meters will only last 5 years, and we've got other people who are saying they're 10. So if you've got practical experience, perhaps you can help.
No, I'm a layman, John, with you, and you know this. I've got dirt under my, what's left of my fingernails, I've got dirt under it. I don't know much more than that. The life expectancy of water meters when we installed them was given as being 8 years. Worse than that, at the time that was done, the council was getting those water meters for $70 and we had to pay 84. It might only be $14, but all the way down the line, the council was using us to make a margin, and now you're going to do it again. It's not our problem whether those water meters are functioning or not. I'm saying there's a better way.
Yeah.
Mayor Brown?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for your submission, Ken. Some good comments in amongst that. Just thinking about the parking building.
Yep.
Do you think that would be a council built building or privately built?
In all honesty, I haven't thought that through enough, so I have to say I don't know. What I do know is that one day we will need one, and all I'm doing there is flagging a significant position that would work for a good part of the retail sector of the town. It's close enough to Mitre 10 and that shopping area over there. It's close enough to the one down Moore Street, and it's close enough to the centre of town. Strategically, it's probably quite a good central place. That's really the point that I was making about that. And that I also said in my statement that you, sir, need to make provision for a community committee that will do some dreaming. That's where that sort of thing gets developed.
Okay.
And second question, you talked about hotel in town, the old post office site.
Yep.
Are you aware that a hotel was planned for the Eastfield site with an international operator, but couldn't get it across the line?
Wrong locations for a start, but
different location to yours.
yeah.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken, and lots of great points in your submission. I just wanted to know, have you got a cost estimate for a Bailey Bridge? How much do they cost? Do you know?
No. And that's really interesting because I felt that that's the sort of question that would come up. But the military don't want to know what the hell are broken down old farmer property developers inquiring about Bailey Bridges for.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I couldn't get, and even when I waved my ill-gained return services badge, that didn't help me to get into the system to find out.
Thank you very much for your submission. You've given us a lot of food for thought there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Okay, we've got a couple who haven't turned up, so we're going to move on to Grant Smith, and on page 544. Thank you, Grant. I'm going to take the chair.
Button, right? We're going to hold it, yeah. That one, right now. How you going? Grant Smith. I live down Smithfield Road, Greyberries down there. Apparently I've got 5 minutes, so I'll talk on two things. One is, which I talked at the bridge meeting,
10
was...
minutes.
Sorry?
Sorry, 10 minutes.
I've got 10,
minutes order.
good. You want me to slow down? I talked on the bridge meeting, and I did talk to the council probably 15 years ago, or when Beto O'Malley was here, I came to the council and suggested that they put a ring road in. I'm a believer in Cochrane's Road, Boundary Road. Bridge brings in the lake, brings in Five Star Beef, brings in AFCO, brings in the airport, brings in your new industrial thing out there, Tallies. And I don't know whether you fellas, how much homework you've done, but I was just talking to a mate of mine. He grows 100 hectares of spuds, okay, 80 tonne to the hectare. That's 4 truck and trailer loads to shift them per hectare. So it's 400 truck and trailer units to shift his spuds. That's his alone. Okay. In the county, we've got 6,500 square kilometres. That's 650,000 hectares. If you times that by 4, that's 2.6 million truckloads being moved. Okay. Now, even if we took half that, we're close to 1 million units going to be shifted around this county in a year. And that's stock, milk, the whole, you name it, onions, everything, and it's getting more and more diverse with these vegetable crops, with big tonnages. Okay, so if you want that through the middle of your town, you carry on with your bridge. But I'd like to see it go right around the ring, and probably half the Christchurch traffic as well. Anyone going to the lake, that's my view, it's an easy fix. The road's there, you don't have to do bugger all, you've got to probably put a few off ramps in and put a bridge in. We'll just move this problem here out probably 60 years. Okay, so I did suggest at the time you need to be thinking 50 years ahead. And to show, I think I've got a bit of forward planning, when the council turned 100 years, the county council offered them $100,000 to do a project. I sat down, this is 40 years ago, and suggested they build a stadium down here where you fellas have built one now. So this is 40 years ago. There was no industrial stuff down there. I suggested it could have been all motels, all restaurants, cafes, the whole lot. Ensuing councils have made their decisions, and now she's all headed into Moore Street with trucks and you name it. The other thing I think with this that you may find is if you can't get off this 4-lane highway you're going to put through there, you'll have a big shit fight with all Kentucky Fried and McDonald's and the rest of them if they can't get people in their gate. So your planning's getting very mixed as to where it's going. Right, that's my say on that. The next, I got another wee one that I didn't submit on, but northeast, which is our area, you guys have planned with sections out there. There's probably 2,000 sections. You've done nothing to accommodate that as far as commercial zoning goes. At the moment, if we build 2,000 houses out there, they're all going to go to the Netherby 4 Square to get their groceries. Well, she's going to be a bit of a mess there. So I think you need to show a bit of forward planning and get some commercial zoning in that area somehow. The other thing with the 4 state highways is all those kids out of those 2,000 houses at this stage are going to the Ashburton College. What are we going to do? We're going to put a cattle underpass, or is that how we're dealing with it? So you need to think about that as well. Right, now why I really came was the water down the northeast east zoning area. I should have actually bought some for you to drink, but I was a bit short of time. As you know, and you've turned a blind eye to for probably 30 years, is the high nitrate level in the water out the northeast area. Now, where might that be coming from? How the hell has that happened? Well, you fellas owned the abattoir when they were digging offal pits and dumping stuff 40 years ago, and it's still in the water, and still, you've now rezoned the cemetery for us, so we've got a few more offal pits being dug on a regular basis. I suggested 15 years ago when I came to the council that they were having trouble getting rid of their plastic at the time, that they make plastic coffins, fully sealed. It would help our water down there, but they looked like it was coming out of a different planet. So, so this is all adding to our nitrate level. ECAN's policy of retaining stormwater on properties, so that it's all going into the groundwater untreated. If somebody wants to wash their car and wash it down the drain, it's all into the groundwater, the whole lot. All the oil runoff, you've got a car that's leaking oil, as soon as it rains, it's all going into our groundwater, which is going down below us. Long-term council planning, especially on Smithfield Road, they put a septic tank and a well. You had to have a hectare to get enough separation. They're all in a line down the road, all the septic tanks. So how good's that going to be for groundwater? So that's council planning. Okay, should have never happened at the time. So the water is shit. I've got a report here. It's high nitrates, E. coli. That's on our shallow well. Luckily, we've got a deep well. But our shallow well, which is a monitor well for ECAN, is just crap, the water in it. Okay, and it's got worse and worse over the years. So what I'm saying is I think these high nitrate levels, supposedly with pregnant women, it can cause abortion. And if somebody wants to come back and talk to the council about it happening, the litigation could go anywhere for you. So I believe we should have town water down there. I've suggested it. We've had this meeting 3 or 4 times and had a vote, and people have voted probably according to where their well status is. If their well was dry, it was always a year late. When all the wells went dry down there, we had to put them in. Then the council came with a vote. Everybody had already paid $6,000 to have their wells deepened, so they weren't really interested. But I think it needs to be done. The water quality is just getting worse and worse and worse. So that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions? Anybody?
Good.
Oh yes, we've got one from me, Brown.
Thanks, Grant, for your submission. You talk about putting water down your part of the area down there.
Yeah.
What about wastewater at the same time?
How do you mean? The town wastewater or runoff?
Oh, yeah, so you don't have a septic tank. So houses would not have septic tanks.
Yeah, no, we've all got septic tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is if you extend the water pipe down there for drinking, would you also put a wastewater pipe down there for your sewage?
Be good.
You'd be accepted.
Be good if you did, yeah, be good, except, well, yeah, it's all our side of the road's rezoned residential.
Yep.
So, yeah, in the long-term plan, that's probably what you've got to look at. I don't know how the council's looking at servicing all these areas, or what, is there a master plan as to what's going to go for all that zoning?
From your submission, we'll be finding that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I assume there is, but we'll find that out.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your submission. Pardon? Oh, sorry, Angus.
Angus, sorry.
You ran away.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarity, we've had this submission and then we've had 1 or 2 others in the northeast corner. Is there a groundswell of people wanting potable water out that way? I'm trying to build up a picture that just how many people do you think will need it? Bearing in mind that the science probably says the whole area, but what's your opinion?
Well, once again, you're going to be, if you do it next year, you're going to be a year late. All the wells out the northeast area have been lowered or been sunken deeper this year because they went dry.
Right.
Our wells, the same, has dropped below our house pump level, but we've got an irrigation pump in the bottom. So that's what you're up against, is all those people have paid this year, so they're probably not going to vote, but it's ongoing. Yeah, it's just...
Okay. With your local knowledge, this is year 0. They've just done what you said, lowered their wells. Which year in our long-term plan would be the year to go and ask them from your local knowledge?
if we get a heap of rain, all those wells come up, probably 30 years, okay? But we don't get any rain and they go down further than before they start drilling.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's a fact of having it there. You know, I can't say how many people are going to say yes now, and probably not me. But if I decide to subdivide my place, or my kids do, then yes, there's going to be a need for 40 people or 40 hook-ons.
Have you got another question, Angus, or you finished?
I was hoping to get an answer because we're trying to do forward planning, so can you be a bit more specific on what year you think we should actually do this?
The sooner the better. Yeah, as I said about the litigation, if somebody comes and you guys know that there's high nitrate levels in that area that have been caused by your cemetery and when you owned particularly the abattoir, then where does the ball sit? Okay? If somebody wants to have a go at you.
Okay.
Good?
Thank you very much for your submission.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Bridge Action Group, Stuart Cross, and we're on page 140. Welcome to the chair.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Brian Mitchell. I'm sort of here with the rest of our Bridge Action Group people, Stuart and Jeanette. We've been around since 2005. They tell me it seems quite a long time sometimes when you keep going through all your old notes you took. But our aim is really that we make a good decision for the future in the town and get the best value for the ratepayers. We're not trying to be pains in the butts. We definitely agree that we definitely need another bridge. The main contentious part is where it should be. Those who have been through Tynwald recently, which I'm sure most of you have at some stage, I would go down to the lake probably most days for a bit of a walk, and around 2-3 o'clock, invariably every day now, the traffic is backed up to the sale yards. I thought, it's just holiday period. It's not now. It's every day pretty well. There's not many days I miss going down there. So I think the bridge is probably some of our problem, but maybe the problem is actually further on where it's all getting bogged down. Because if you go down the other end, they tell me it's just as bad. It's right back past BP and way down there. So I think we've definitely got a problem. I'm not sure, I've had some quite good ideas from people about putting things down West Street and that, but all that traffic's still got to go through the town. And been up down south and been up to Picton just recently, and most places you've got very wide streets. I've only got a single street for the main highway through the town with not too much on it, or they've got somewhere you can go around the town. A good example is when you're going into Christchurch now. If you take that new road out the back, you can go almost anywhere in Christchurch in about a quarter of the time it used to take you previously. So we've got to get a few hints from them, I feel. Our group don't agree that Chalmers Avenue is the place for it to be. There's so many things that happen down that avenue. Went to the meeting at the intermediate school a wee while ago, and everybody there was definitely against it. There's only one person who must have felt very lonely when they said, yes, I think this is a good idea, and basically all the people there were against it. So, I think you've really got to listen to the people, and you've got to make good decisions. You've got to, if you get good news or bad news from any of your consultants, you've got to take it and look at it carefully, because I felt, I went the 4 days at the last hearing, and some of the rubbish I heard there was unbelievable. It really was. The people you had giving you that advice, one of them had never even been down the end of Chalmers Avenue, because we asked them about how we're going to get, because I'm also involved with Maniaroda Park, said, how are you going to get into there? And I talked to Daryl when he was there, and he says, oh, Bill, come here, Brian's worried how we're going to get into Maniaroda Park now, if you put the bridge through there. He said, oh, well, you just drive in. I said, well, you really can't, because if you've looked at your plan, it's going to take out a piece of the rugby field and right from the gate of Maniaroto, and obviously when it goes past there, it'll be probably 2 or 3 metres high when it goes past the gate. Oh, no, it won't be like that. So, well, there's a 2 metre high stop bank just past it. And he says, oh, no, there's no stop bank there. I said, it's been there for about 10 years. So they didn't even know. You guys paid them a hell of a heap of money, I'm sure. They didn't come down for nothing just to get free morning teas. And they didn't know what they're on about. They really didn't. And the guy who said about the more cars you have, the less pollution you get. What a lot of garbage. At least the judge gave him an opportunity to try and think it through a bit more, but he didn't do much better later on. Never mind. So that was my part of it. Their preferred thing is really a ring road. I think you've got to get all that big traffic out of town. It's not going to help the town. East Street is bad enough now, and West Street is probably going to be no better when there's all the work that's going on in it. So I think a ring road is definitely the preferred thing. Where it goes, like you guys got the ability to get the experts to give you some advice, but I think Alistair come up with a really good option past your new subdivision that's going down off Trevor's Road, go around the back of that, shoot across the river, and away you go. It'll be close enough to town that people can still come and go. Some of the ones further out are probably much easier, but in the long run, I think it's probably be a better bet to be a bit closer to town. And it's not a wasted opportunity for people who in the business that are concerned they may lose business. You know, we went to Japan a few years ago, and every here and then along the roads they had these great big sort of roadhouse things where you could buy almost anything you ever wanted, fuel, food, anything at all. So it's an opportunity for someone else to put something like that out there. The 4 lanes through town, I'm not sure that we've got room to do that. We may do, but the accident that was down the corner of South Street and East Street the other week with the truck, that the 2-into-1 doesn't really go particularly well, which the caravan guy found. He tried to cut in on the truck, and the truck didn't have anywhere to go except on the footpath, and it took out the door of the truck and most of the side of the caravan. So you've got to, if you're going to have 2 lanes, you have 2 lanes. You're going to have 1 lane, you have 1 lane. People know where they're going then. So the only other thing I had in my part of it was, if you go through Tynwald, you know, we used to do a lot of work over there early on, and it was very, very wet down below Tynwald and down the east side of it. And the amount of work in putting a road down there would be pretty huge. I think you'd probably down 6 couple of metres or so, I suppose. Before you got a decent foundation, it might stay there. So I've had my say. Stuart, Jeanette, yes, would you like? She's got another part of our discussions we've been thinking about.
My name is Jeanette Cavill. I have been a member of the Bridge Action Group for 12 years. The second urban bridge connecting to Chalmers Avenue is a short-sighted, quick-fix solution of the district plan. The preferred option is a ring road through Boundary Road, Cochrane's Road. Cochrane's Road is a better option. With Lake Hood progressing and now the development of Strown Fields off Trevor's Road, as well as the agricultural sector, this option is certainly a preferred location. There are many serious concerns with Chalmers Avenue. I am a close resident to that corridor. First and foremost, the health and safety of residents, adults, children, and particularly the elderly, being able to access both east and west and vice versa. There are 8 schools, 11 preschool kindergartens, 4 primary, as well as the Ashburton College. The Hampstead School roll is 360, The Christian School is 180. The Ashburton Intermediate is 425. Netherby is 152, as well as a percentage of Ashburton College students living on the east side. This is a considerable number of young people having to access Chalmers Avenue. There are sports venues, clubs, the Maniaroto, Cubs and Scouts. With the increased volume of traffic along the corridor, this location will not overcome the congestion. Lights at Walnut Avenue will not address the issue east and west. Some time ago, I had a talk with Rob Rouse, an ex-councillor member. I asked him where the access and the exit would be of the Chalmers Avenue corridor. His actions were Walnut Avenue, Eastfield Road. There is no planned solution to the many crossroads, of which there are 8 connecting from the east of Chalmers Avenue, 9 connecting from the west. These are not sufficient to enable the pedestrians to cross safely. This is a major concern with the increased volume of traffic. It appears that there is no access nor exit drawn up for the Tynwald Chalmers Avenue corridor, north or south. The continuation of Chalmers Avenue to Bridge Street is a congested area, with the Netherby shops, the 4 Square grocery. Many residents cross to and from the road. Grant Smith spoke of this, and it is a potential danger. The trucks which turn off State Highway 1 onto South Street to head to the many industries that are and will disturb the residents along the way. This has already been brought to attention with the Bridge Action Group. We have many members that live along Bridge Street, and they are woken at 4:30 in the morning, and the traffic goes to very late in the night. Pollution to the issues of residents is a serious concern, and Stuart will probably elaborate on that. Community severance would disrupt the residential area east and the quiet enjoyment of their properties. As this is a state highway issue, NZTA should be 100% liable for the cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you just make a few quick comments, please? Because we're just running, we allow sort of 10 minutes and
Okay.
and we've got to allow for some questions as well.
We'll try and keep on track.
If you can.
Also, I did put a submission in for myself as well, so I was told I had plenty of time, but hey, look, we'll keep moving through. Hey, and it's also, we've got a lot of the Bridge Action Group members here supporting us as well. The funding on the bridge, as Jeanette said, we see this as a state highway issue. NZTA should really be picking up 100% of the cost. And the reason for that is, hey, we all pay road user charges, whether we're filling up with petrol or obviously our diesel road user fees. Long weekends really show that it is an NZTA issue. You've really only got to have Easter, Christmas, Anzac weekend, and you get traffic backing up. I had the misfortune of travelling north on the day, the Monday of Anzac weekend, and the traffic really is built up from Walnut Avenue onwards. The bridge is not necessarily the total issue around that. The Bridge Action Group also on public consultation. Now, hey, look, you could say we've ticked all the boxes as a council. You could say you've done everything correct. But the big thing there, due to the fact that the last public consultation was nearly 10 years ago, the Bridge Action Group believes that a sunset clause with the community has truly expired. And NZTA is obviously not showing the bridge in their long-term plan, and it appears there's little acknowledgement or willingness on their behalf to actually pay for it.
The other thing also, obviously there's been some work done with the Provincial Growth Fund. We had stage 1 and 2, I believe stage 2 is just completed, but really it'd be nice that the community can see that. One other question we had was how were these people selected? And we're just questioning that there's a good cross-section from the community. Something came out very clear from the intermediate meeting was that Peter Livingston from the Tynwald School is on that committee, but he had not spoken with some of the other schools. I believe one of the other principals that was there said, hey, we'd never been spoken to about it. And really often those schools are more affected than Tynwald, because their children are going to be crossing Chalmers Avenue. So it really is a safety thing. Obviously Opus were the consultant that you were working with in the early stages of the route being chosen, but we believe they're now not your preferred supplier, so perhaps it should be peer reviewed. Health issues, hey look, I won't labour the point, you're trying to keep me moving along there, but obviously you're going to have more diesel fumes. Modern diesel vehicles, they have particulate filters on them, which filters out, but you end up with very, very fine particles, and that's really a new issue. We all thought diesel was becoming cleaner, but it's actually not, and your respiratory system's harder to filter out these fine particulates. Jeanette's covered off safety. I'll push through my one because don't want to repeat ourselves there. Obviously, I do disagree with the location coming off Chalmers Avenue. There are other options, as Ken Ledley also alluded to. You've got West and Malcolm or a ring road, which would certainly be beneficial. I'll round it up. Really, the second bridge has been a contentious topic for many years. Why has there been many submitters against Chalmers Avenue? Why was the public meeting so well attended at the intermediate recently? You have to sort of ask, why is that? The public feel very shortchanged. This was a preconceived route chosen at the beginning. We saw this prior to Terrace View being built. The road was going to go down Grove Street. The only change now is the proposed new road behind Grove Street is going to wreck the lifestyle block owners east of Tynwald, and also people are still going to cross this road. Alistair Urquhart was a high polling councillor when he was elected. He had good public support. He was representing the district as well as the people on the eastern side of Tynwald. There's never been full support for Chalmers Avenue location around the council table, and the current proposed location was only passed when Alistair was asked to step down from voting due to a conflict of interest. I believe it's now time to reconsult with the community, as nearly 10 years has passed since the last consultation. It seems very clear that the community is raising some serious, valid issues, and this was backed up with the high attendance from the community at the recent meeting held at the Ashburton Intermediate. Now's the time to look at the long term, a 50-year solution, not a 10-year one. I thank you for the opportunity to speak and take our submission on board.
Thank you. Has anyone got any yes, Liz McMillan.
Thank you for your submission. I've just got a couple of questions because I'm confused. So you've mentioned 3 other alternative routes. So you've mentioned the Boundary Road, Cochrane's Road, Trevor's Road, and then West Malcolm Street. Has your group got a preference, or you just don't want it on Chalmers Ave and happy to look at what else we could come up with?
I think just to answer that if I can, it's very clear we do not see Chalmers Avenue at all as an option. The ring road is probably our ultimate option, but I do realise cost was brought up. Mayor Brown spoke to the group at the intermediate about that. Malcolm Street isn't another option that could work. But I think the key thing is we all agree on, and it came up very clear at the intermediate meeting, is that
Chalmers Avenue is not an option that we agreed.
Thank you. Mayor Brown.
Yeah, it is on NZTA's plan. It's in year 26 to be built, so it is there, I can guarantee that. And at the moment there's funding 50% from them, 20% from council, and 30, whatever's left is 30% from somewhere else. Don't know where that somewhere else is yet. You're saying NZTA should pay for it, the whole thing. What if they don't?
Well, I don't know. But I would say we'd have to be looking at something, but perhaps something we can...
I think they'd say there will be no bridge.
Yeah, they probably would. But I think we never ever disagreed that we don't need another bridge. So we've never ever said that. But I think
The location.
the location is the biggest thing, and value for money is the other one. You know, at the intermediate, you know, I think I actually said it's better to spend. The estimated cost of 38,000, I think, is pretty optimistic. I've just had my bathroom fixed, and it wasn't far from that. So you're never going to build, probably, even going through Chalmers Avenue, probably at least probably 2-3 kilometres of roading, and a lot of it would have pretty deep excavation through the back of Tynwald, like we mentioned. So I think if you're going to spend, I would guess you'd be looking at least 100 million, if not more. You know, look at your buildings, what's happened to all those. It sounds really good to get you to take on the job, and then all of a sudden, oh, sorry, it's going to cost you another 50 million, you know, but you started, so you're sort of stuck with it. So I think if we're going to have to spend that sort of money, it would be much better that it goes around the town. But I'm not sure how long the old bridge is going to last. It's been there a long time, like the Rakaia Bridge, and I believe they tend to move a fair bit. And I remember at the first meeting they had at Tynwald, they were quoting like 40 tonnes was the maximum load you put onto the old bridge. And all of a sudden it crept up to 50, and now it's up to 60. So that's pretty excessive loading if it was only good for about 10 years ago. So it's going to be, I would have thought, getting worse rather than better.
NZTA have said to us early on, the only route they will fund,
yes,
co-fund, is Chalmers Ave. If you want to build it somewhere else, fund the whole lot yourself. Yeah. So that's the only one they'll do. If we give them the opportunity to back out, they will take it and run.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, and we'll end up,
we'll
end up with no bridge.
But things have changed.
Can I just interfere? It's not. We're not having a debate. We're only
asking
asking questions for clarification. Okay. And I'll just take one last question, quick question, and we have to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your submission. In order for me as a councillor to further your argument, what facts and details can you give me to prove your case?
Okay. I think that's a good question. Hey, look, really, as a group, we've made it quite clear we don't see Chalmers Avenue as the preferred option. The facts and the details I see as the council's job, not the Bridge Action Group's.
Thank you. Thank you for your submission. Thanks for coming in.
It's okay.
It's much appreciated. Okay, next up we'll welcome to the Chair Olive Philpott, and her submission is on page 455.
The maze. Mr. Mayor and councillors, my plea is for a bridge over the further down on the Ashburton River. I'm amazed that from the main road to the hills there are at least 7 crossings on the Ashburton River. Hines River is the same. There's 3 crossings from the main road to the coast. Ashburton River, there is nothing. My son, who works in contracting, some 15-20 years ago, never ever came onto the main road. He was able to cross through different places on the south side of the Ashburton River. Boundary Road was one of the main crossings. Many years ago, a transport company endeavoured to put a crossing down when 5 Star opened up. Just prior to them getting the road, the road finished, a flood came through and took the crossing, and they said they could not afford to go and do it again themselves. If there was a crossing on Boundary Road, all stock trucks, food trucks, milk tankers, and numerous other things that cross the main road would never cross the Ashburton Bridge. To me, most of those vehicles are 3 and 4 cars in length. Take those off the road and you wouldn't have half the trouble going across the Ashburton River that you do. If there was a bridge or a crossing of some kind at Boundary Road, Lakewood users would be able to go across. The residents of Lakewood come up and they use all the different roads through Tynwald to get onto the main road. Some of them go back as far as Jane Street to get out because they can't get out. The road is sealed from Drumore Corner through to the river, and it's sealed from, you can take Ealing, Hines, anywhere you like, right to the river, the same thing. There's the shingle trucks coming out from the river, back out onto Graham's Road to come up and cross the bridge. Sometimes there has been 2 trucks following each other. They come up to the top of Graham's Road, they sit there and the cars behind them sit waiting. I went home the other day, 2 shingle trucks staying and then a grain truck after that. To me, that's equivalent to 12 cars trying to get out on the main road. A car can get out quite quickly. Trucks and trailers have to stop and start. They are so slow in getting going. Long weekends when holidays are on, agricultural people, some of them have had to transfer their operations from one side of the county to the other because they say they can sit 20 minutes trying to get out on the main road and do the stop, start coming through town. Those coming up behind them, they're cunning enough, they cross the road, shoot along Malcolm Street, come up in front of you at the underhead pass. Trucks are going slow, they can't travel up, so all these people get out and that puts them back further again. I think it's time that these people had a little bit more consideration. Shortly, there's going to be a thing, I'm going to read this to you. It was in a farming magazine come out in April, where the milk tankers now have to stop and take a 30-minute start. They are monitored, and now this is going to happen. Farmers are about to have problems with stock cartage with the new incentive from NZTA. Some of the transport stock operators are going to have GPS and electric logbooks where NZTA can monitor them at will. The new rules say you can't drive for longer than 13 hours and you must have 2 half-hour rest breaks every 5.5 hours. After you have driven for 13 hours, the driver must have at least a 10-hour break. Some of these truck drivers are only a few minutes from getting home, but because the time's up, they have to stop. It's pretty distressing when you hear some of the stories. Some of the truckies say Ashburton is the worst town in the whole of the South Island they have to drive through. Truckies have gone through a pretty rigorous gruelling with Movid. They've had to wash their trucks, their cattle and their animals have to go off the truck and wash them to carry on. Milk tankers are stopping at parking bays and some of the rest areas to have their stops, and I can see now that it won't be long until you'll be having cattle trucks stopping here on East Street because their time is up, and if they're not monitored, they're going to be charged. And these fines are not cheap. My son gets absolutely frustrated, and he's only one of many others, and I think the farming community deserves something. Lakewood is going to be developed far more than it is now. Some of the schools coming down from Christchurch hate coming through Ashburton because they have to get their boats down, then the rowers get down. The minute they're finished, they want to get the boats and yachts off the thing to get through the town before the general traffic comes up. If they could come out and go across Boundary Road and come straight out to Tremor Corner, none of those vehicles would go through the centre of the town. There's a real bottleneck thing, and this bottleneck coming into Ashburton doesn't matter what way you go, you've still got to get across and get around Mitre 10 Corner. Today, most of these tractors and vehicles are so big, they're not allowed to cross over the town unless they've got a pilot vehicle. One day a couple 3 weeks ago, I come across, I met a pilot truck with a big truck behind it. A little bit further along, I met another pilot truck with a large truck and a pilot truck following. Came across to Havelock Street. The pilot truck got through, but the big truck didn't. So the pilot truck had to get a parking bay on the street to wait for the truck to come through. With the stops and starts and the traffic lights, these vehicles are having far more time, and I think if you're not careful, you're going to have these cattle trucks stopping here where they could come down instead of coming north. Last fortnight ago, there were 5,000 cattle brought down from the North Island, restocking where Bovert had catched them. This week, I'm not allowed to quote the numbers that are going down now because they're loading the cattle ship. And these trucks have to come through Ashburton. If they could cross at Boundary Road, half this trouble would be evacuated. That's my say.
Thank you very much, Olive.
And I congratulate Councillor Lovett in sticking up for the farmers. I think the cost that's putting on to the farmers is phenomenal because they're held up travelling in and out.
I'll take a couple of quick questions because we're kind of getting behind time. But there was one thing I wanted for clarification. Are you looking at a hard surface through Boundary Road through the river, like coast forward type crossing or a bridge?
We had this debate, as I said, about 10 years ago. Councillor Ledley said to me after one of those meetings that he never came into the town because he always crossed Boundary Road with his machinery to come up to Tynwald. Today you can't do that, you've got to come up the town. And then so many times I get to the Chalmers Avenue and they have to wait for a pilot vehicle to bring them across because they're big, which is ridiculous to me.
Okay, I think thank you. Anybody got any questions of Olive? Or?
I think the farmers need a bit of consideration.
Yes, they do. But look, thank you very much for coming in and speaking to us, and I'm sure we'll take it all on board and when we do our deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that article is in Farmers Weekly in April, and this is the next thing that's coming up. And you'll have a stink town if you don't have something else.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on the list we have Ross Ellett, and it is on page 11. He's related to me.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mayor Brown and councillors for the opportunity to speak to you all this morning. As I think you all have gathered from my submission, I am very strongly opposed to the proposed location of the second bridge at Chalmers Ave. And from what I read in other submissions, social media posts and news articles dating back to 2013 when the original decision was made, I can tell I'm not the only one of the same opinion. For most of my life, I've lived in Ashburton. I went to Borough School, where some of you might remember I was heavily involved with environmental education. When council reserve staff were dumping green waste and scrap concrete on land adjacent to River Terrace, where the EA Network Centre has now been built, I cycled after a district council truck to take photos so we could provide supporting evidence with a letter to David Askin for the environmental group at Ashburton Borough School. I attended Ashburton College for 5 years, and during 2012 and 2013 I served on the Ashburton Youth Council. I studied in Christchurch for 4 years at the University of Canterbury, and after I graduated with a degree in Media and Communications and Human Services, I returned to the district and have worked in the local CBD for the past 3.5 years. I'm someone who has strong opinions on matters in this community, and I've been asked many times why I don't run for council. My answer is simple. I've seen some of the controversial decisions council has made, and I don't want to be blamed for them. As councillors, you're elected to listen and represent the people, making decisions that will benefit the district and its residents. However, as Murray Anderson pointed out when he spoke to you all yesterday, the reason more people don't attend public meetings is because they no longer have confidence that you will listen to what they have to say. As stated in an article on January 23, 2014, submitters say no to bridge plans. When Councillor Rawlinson was a member of the Bridge Action Group, 95% of submitters said no. 336 submissions were received, and of those only 17 were in favour of the chosen route. Despite a majority of submitters strongly opposed the proposed location at the end of Chalmers Ave and Grove Street, 2 councillors who remain here today voted in favour of acquiring land at the end of Grove Street. I have a strong interest in the well-being of young people in this district, and despite my receding hairline, I'd like to think I'm still somewhat of a young person myself. As you will have read in my submission, I strongly believe that the proposed location for a second bridge connecting Chalmers Ave and Grove Street compromises the safety of pedestrians, particularly children and teenagers walking or biking to school. In large cities, young people don't always have that luxury because of the distance in Ashburton where we can. However, if you go ahead with diverting traffic down Chalmers Ave, there is no doubt the safety of young people and their families will be compromised. In the submission you have received from the Bridge Action Group, they have pointed out that there are 8 schools and 11 preschools and kindergartens on the route north and south of the river that will be affected. Young people take risks, and it will only be a matter of time before someone gets hurt trying to cross another busy road. The submission by the Bridge Location Group agrees that taking up to 12,000 plus of extra vehicles, including heavy trucks, through a suburban area is very unwise. Crossings are highly inadequate, and this would make the proposed route very unsafe, preventing school-aged children from being able to bike or walk to school by themselves safely. Roading infrastructure on Bridge Street and Chalmers Ave would require significant re-engineering to make the road even remotely safe, and this would also require the demolition of many houses and shops. Trying to legislate the Chalmers Ave route to make it unavailable for heavy traffic would be ineffective when projects such as the planned extension to Tallies are to be built just to the north of the proposed route. During my time at school, I attended Ellington Cubs and then Ashburton Scouts. This included many activities at Minneroda Park on Chalmers Ave next to the river. To quote a submission from Paul Jessup from the Minneroda Scout Zone and reiterate a point made by Philip Crozier during his submission yesterday morning, building a bridge approach through the park will have a devastating effect on a major community asset. Building a bridge at Chalmers Ave will disrupt access, prevent parking and create a huge health and safety issue, not to mention destroying the tranquility of the park for not only scouts and guides, but also other users from the public as well. It will also have a significant impact on the users of Collegiate South Sports Grounds over the road. Youth are often labelled as troublemakers in Ashburton. By destroying a community asset that helps to provide them with something positive, you are damaging the opportunities for young people in this town. At the meeting held at Ashburton Intermediate, Councillor Brown made the comment that putting a 4 to 6 lane highway through central Ashburton will divide the town into 2 and diminish the carefully crafted nice town that we have now, and that was taken from the submission from the Minneroda Scouts. As traffic volumes continue to grow, no route through the middle of town will do anything other than divide the town. If past Councillor Mayor Donna Favour was correct in her statement yesterday that going back to the drawing board and changing the proposed location could set the project back a further 16 years, I believe this is necessary to ensure the project actually meets the needs of the current and future residents of this town as it continues to grow and expand. I believe that land already purchased should not hold the decision of the current council to ransom because of previous poor decisions. While the Bridge Location Group has also suggested an alternative location at the end of West Street across the river onto land near Malcolm Street, I strongly disagree with this idea. This would require State Highway 1 on West Street to become 4 lanes, and while this submission suggests there is room to do this, it would also require a sizable loss of strip of the West Street car park on the north side of the river, not to mention the implications it would have locally on drivers and pedestrian safety as they cross that main road. The Bridge Location Group has suggested that land already purchased for the new proposed route through Chalmers Ave and East Timwell could be sold, and those funds put towards any land purchase necessary for a West Street bridge. They have stated that if the project used the route through West Street, NZTA would be obliged to fund this 100%. While I agree that the land should be sold, I do not believe it should be used on any route through the centre of town. As you will have read through in my original submission, I strongly believe an eastern bypass would help to reduce the congestion for both local drivers and create an open road speed limit alternative for heavy vehicles travelling long distances to bypass the town, making their journeys both more efficient and our CBD roads safer. As I mentioned in my original submission, it would also provide a practical alternative for any residents on the east side of Archibald Street in Timwell, including those at Lakehood. According to the Bridge Action Group submission, Mayor Brown has stated that locally vehicle counts now swing more towards out-of-towners. As NZTA are primarily interested in efficient travel flows, they may look more favourably upon a proposal from the Ashburton District Council to make a 4-lane eastern bypass around the town. By creating an eastern bypass with a second bridge over the Ashburton River, the council can both support the local economy and provide a practical outcome that improves pedestrian and driver safety for a long time in the future. Despite the decision to close the information centre on E Street, I believe it is important for the council to take this opportunity to work with local businesses and tourism providers to promote Ashburton as a destination that people come to visit and not just pass through. With local attractions such as the growing hospitality sector, the new town centre projects, Lakehood and Mount Hutt, it will be a significant economic benefit to local businesses if the long-term plan include advertising and promoting the Ashburton district as a place to visit and stay, rather than people just believing we're somewhere to stop and go to the toilet on their way to the actual holiday destination. By bringing that pedestrian access and making it safer for people in the community to come into the centre of town, make that a place where people come to visit, and if they've left somewhere like Christchurch going on holiday, they've already decided before they leave, are we stopping to go to the toilet, are we stopping to get food? They're travelling south, they're travelling north. Make it so that Ashburton is somewhere they come to visit. Let's spend the week in Ashburton. Let's support the business. Let's go and see the new developments that are down there and all this nice one-way systems like Christchurch that they try to escape. But the idea is that you support the local community by having that bypass, giving the option, and everything else I've mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone got any questions? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi Ross, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Really good what you've been saying here. Just a couple of questions. The one I've got is Whitten Road outside of town. How do we promote tourism?
That is an extent that you will have to use your, in terms of like relationships that you build with other, so obviously experienced tourism in Canterbury and around that side of things, so they work with other tourism providers as well. There are places like Akaroa that seem to be able to advertise their own tourism without having to have a major road travelling through the middle of them. Hamilton seems to get on alright when you've got a bypass route from Auckland straight through, I think it's to Taupo or Rotorua, and nothing seems to be wrong with their tourism sector. So why does Ashburton need to do the same thing?
Okay. So bypass in your eye is quite easy. We won't lose people coming into this town.
Obviously there are give and take situations, but that's up to a sort of you've lost the information centre, bring back something not to the same effect as the information centre, but get tourism into Ashburton, but you do it by advertising, you don't do it by people driving through and saying, oh yeah, cool, this is what we're seeing as we drive past, and they're still travelling through, they've made their plans. Let them make their plans before they've left their location, as opposed to making their plans when they suddenly come through and see these things.
Thank you.
Okay, one last question from Mayor Neil Brown. Oh, sorry, Roger.
Thank you.
I can't see because of Jack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your submission. You may have heard me ask the Bridge Action Group as a councillor, what facts and figures they could give to me to further their case. I note you mentioned 12,000 plus extra vehicles going down Chalmers Avenue. Where did you get that figure from?
So that figure has been taken from their submission. However, as someone who's not in that sort of field, I think it's obviously designed that you take the information from people with that experience. I'm here to not spread misinformation, to state public opinion, state facts, not spread misinformation, and allow the council to make an informed decision based on the information they have available to them, but also taking into consideration the people's opinions as well, and the reasons they're meant to represent.
Thank you, Ross. That's good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ross, for your submission. Just one point of clarification. You said Chalmers Ave, Grove Street was preferred location. I understand it's Grove Street and Graham's Road is where the preferred location is at the moment, not Grove Street.
Not Grove Street, okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in with your submission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Aldous Bond, and she is on page number 62. Welcome.
Hello. Yeah, I've arrived with no notes. I'm just going to talk from my heart. Mayor and councillors, my name's Aldous Bond. I'm a resident here since high school. It's quite interesting what people have been saying about the bridge. I just don't understand. I've only been giving it a thought since I arrived back from the North Island and went to my hairdresser and we got into a discussion about it. And she challenged me to go and do a submission. So here I am. I don't understand why we couldn't have a totally new bridge, a wide bridge, a 4-lane bridge with 2 lanes going south and 2 lanes going north. I don't understand why we couldn't have that and keep the roading the way it is in Ashburton and extend the roading wider in Tynwald. So there'll always be bottlenecking in, C, D, B areas of every city or town. But I don't understand why that hasn't been thrown around. And also, you say, the Mayor was saying about the, from Chalmers Avenue to Graham's Road, why couldn't that be, a bridge be built over there for cyclists and walkers and keep that a recreational area for the town, somewhere where people can exercise instead of, around the middle of town? I just wondered what, like Palmerston North have got. I thought that would be really a nice thing to do with that, area that you've already purchased. And the other thing is, if you don't hurry up and make a decision, I'm going to be out at the cemetery because this has gone on too long. Now, talking about the cemetery, this is really my passion. I really like the way the new part's been developed. I really think it's really smart, the entranceway and, the paving and the curbing. Why can't you do that with the old and the intermediate, stages? Why can't that all be done like that? And where the old sexton's house was, why can't that be developed into a nice seating area with like roses and somewhere where people can go and reflect? Because if you look at the cemetery, there's a lot of, if you go out there any time of the day or night, there's a lot of visitors there. A lot of people visit there and a lot of elderly people visit there, and it's not very good on their mobility either because it's all up and down, and as graves sink, there's lots of holes, and I've seen at funerals where people have actually had a little twisted their ankles and people are on sticks and Zimmer frames and things like that. I don't think it's, these are the people that have made our community, and we haven't got enough respect to make it a place of, real respect to the people that are still living. They want to go out there and see their loved ones' graves. Yeah. And can I say anything more? Because
Yes.
I believed I had 10 minutes.
Yes.
Now, I believe that we're getting a new entrance to the domain proposed. That's not going to be overly good for me because I own 2 houses in front of where you. So I'm a bit reluctant to build my new home there until I see what it's going to look like. I don't know why it's so important to have 2 because of the traffic. But what are they going to see? Because you're taking the aviary away. All the things as a child and as an adult I loved to go and look at was the birds. And I'd like to see something in the domain developed because we're a farming community, like a animal zoo of, all the animals that the farmers have. There's one in, what do I say? Palmerston North, like that. And I think that would be a really good area for families to go, visitors to go, overseas visitors. It's food for thought because every town has trees, flowers, a bit different. But a pulling power to get them in the domain. I don't know if anybody else has thought of that. I think that I should have written it down. I didn't realise because I'm a newbie. I don't talk in public. But I always have opinions about what I'd like to see.
You're doing very, very well, and you're speaking from the heart, and you are saying some, it's a bit of food for thought for us all to think about.
Yeah.
But thank you.
And I hope with your new development downtown that you spent 15 million on, I hope that you're going to keep those gardens formed. You're not just going to let them grow real ugly and there's going to be weeds growing because that's going to really annoy me when I'm downtown. No weeds. And the bushes aren't let to go all unruly and you can't get past them. And
I'm sure our Gardens Department will be looking after them well.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's all I want to say. Has anyone got anything to say to me?
Thank you very, very much. Anyone got any questions or everyone's okay? Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, you're not going to ask me any questions?
I will.
Okay, we've got one question for you before you disappear. Angus.
Thank you for submitting today. I know I'm not allowed to say comment, Madam Chair, but I just have.
What was that?
Apparently we're not allowed to say comments,
No,
so I was just thinking
just
I was breaking the rules.
questions of
But
clarification.
anyway, my question actually for clarification is, did you, seeing you live so close to the domain,
Yes.
did you submit on our domain strategy?
No, because I left all the responsibility to you. I thought you'd make a good job. I've got something printed out of the computer sitting on my table, and I've been looking at it thinking, well, trying to visualise what it's going to look like. But I don't want to look out in my old age in my rocking chair and my recliner and just see all these people going into the domain. Not really. That's not what I bought the property for at all.
Okay.
I wanted to look at all the trees and the sport being played and...
But thank you very much for your submission. That's great. Thank you. Next up we have Bob McDonald, and his submission is on page 371. Welcome to the chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, the Mayor and councillors, for taking time out. Hopefully it's not going to be too much like Groundhog Day and going over the same thing over and over again, but there's a couple of things. There's just a question I'd like to ask for a start, and I'm not sure if it's been asked before. there was a review being done on the location of the bridge. Has that been released yet, or has that been finished? Neil, you talked about it at the
Yeah.
Not yet.
You're,
Still on
you're
review.
just making a presentation. It's not a discussion.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Right, so there's a couple of things. There's a few things that I want to look at, like so the extra funding for the bridge. Like you read my submission on that there. So where's that? There's 29% difference in the middle there. So like that was something that we were concerned about, where that extra 29% was going to come from. The other thing that that's been bandied around is there's talk about the bridge. If we bring up for discussion again and relook at it, it's going to be delayed. I personally think that's scare tactics, because NZTA, they can't allow Ashburton to become the choke point of the South Island. I know there was, and I can't remember exactly where the information come from, but there was a review done, and one of the major choke points in the South Island was Ashburton. So I think NZTA, they'll be forced into doing something sooner rather than later. Like to say it'd be delayed for another till we're all not here. It's like so. I think that they'll be forced into making a decision anyway. The other one is the effect. I don't think there's been enough emphasis. Well, I suppose it has, but I'm going to do it again on the effect on people on Chalmers Ave. Like there's been a lot of emotion around that meeting that we had down in the intermediate. There was a lot of emotion around of just the physical effect and on the people living in that area, and also a lot of people were concerned about children transitioning from one side of Chalmers Ave to the other, and that leads into the next question is the expense to actually get that all up and running so it's safe, because there's a safety portion part of that as well. So and I'm dead against a ring road around the outside of Ashburton. I know a lot of people are saying it's a good idea, but from a retailer's perspective point of view, it would be disastrous. Because if you look at the last time we went into, personally I went into Temuka, was when we were heading south and we called in there to get something to eat. Like Temuka's completely cut off with a ring road, and that's almost right in the middle of town. So, and I think the mayor at the last meeting said the cost of it was prohibitive, 3 times the cost or something like that. So I think the bridge should go straight down West Street, beside the old bridge, or between the railway bridge and the old bridge, or on the other side. But keep that right in the middle of town, because that'll keep the town vibrant, and people will call in. Like, so if you make it easy enough for a turn off into the CBD, they'll call in. So yeah. Apart from that, I won't take up my whole 10 minutes because I can. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. So if there's any questions?
Thank you very much. And any questions you've got, I'm sure staff can answer them after we do deliberations.
Perfect.
Okay. There's a question from Diane.
Thank you, and thank you for your submission, Bob. I've got 2 questions, if I may. My first one is that if Chalmers Avenue was the best solution for this community, do you think we would have had 11 years' worth of objections?
Do you think sorry?
If Chalmers Avenue was the best option for this community, do you think we would have still had 11 years' worth of objectors?
No, obviously not. Like, if people were happy with it, there would have been nothing said. Like, so yeah, no, I think that's the reason that it's not the best option, is because people are now standing up. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
And my second question was, do you see the West Street option as a long-term solution or a short-term solution? And I'm talking like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
I think it's long term. I don't see why we'd have to change it again. Like, I know there was talk about a third bridge at some stage, but I think if it's done properly, because obviously it's not going to be a 2-lane bridge, or it should be made that it can be extended or wider than normal. But no, I think it's long term. I don't think it's short term. This sounds a bit funny. I know there was some talk about losing car parks and that there, and I've been a real advocate of car parks in Ashburton anyway. I could live with losing a bit of space off the West Street car park to get another bridge in there and stop the congestion and make it through there, because I think there is room in that West Street car park that's wasted anyway. I don't think you'd lose a lot of car parks in there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Angus Mackay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bob, as a retailer, you mentioned wanting to keep in town.
Can you describe, are there any benefits or non-benefits of the way Oamaru is set up?
I can't see any non-benefits because Oamaru is very well positioned because, like, so you can get right through the middle of town. It's got parking either side of the road with the parking in the middle. I know that's not possible because it's not there, but I think it's a great wee town because, like, so as you're going through, the lights give you an opportunity to have a look at when you stop to the lights, and also with their parking on both sides of the road, so you can park either in the middle of the road or left of the road. That would be a perfect solution. I can't see any disadvantage with it at all.
Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
Okay,
no
thanks.
more questions.
Okay,
thank
thanks
you very
very much,
much for coming in. And I think we're going to take a little recess because our final three aren't here. We haven't seen them yet. No. Yes.
None of them are there.
No, so we'll just take a wee recess for a few minutes. Just welcome back everybody, and we now have Greer Ricketts in the chair, and if you'd like to turn to page 499 please. Welcome Greer.
Thank you very much. I am Greer Ricketts and I am a resident of Chalmers Avenue. I'm also on the Bridge Action Group and have been since its inception. We actually live on Chalmers Avenue and strongly disagree to the bridge being on Chalmers Avenue. I've been involved with the bridge and the Bridge Action Group since its inception, also involved with the council under James Bain, and also at the Commissioners' hearing in 2015. Seeing sense is not being addressed. 93% people canvassed at the last hearing didn't want the bridge to be on Chalmers Avenue, nor did they wish to have that option. In the time, people have not listened, and I believe this is the time for you and for everybody to listen. We, the ratepayers, shouldn't be asked to foot the bill. It is actually an NZTA cost. The reasons for not Chalmers Avenue, it's residential. There's only 2 pedestrian crossings along it. It has 9 feeder schools and has an increase with the preschools. And also in this area, not to mention that there's tallies and SCO and sports clubs and also the new Braybrook. So it's a very busy thoroughfare already. There has been no mention at any stage of an entry or exit from this route. Also, once the lights go in at Walnut Avenue West Street, that will probably create another problem. And what about the Netherby area? It will also be severely affected. Health and safety is a huge issue also, with the truck fumes, the braking, carcinogenics. When this was first discussed, we were looking at 50-tonne trucks. Now it's 60-tonne trucks and trailers, and they will use the shortest, quickest route. Living on Chalmers Avenue has had its moments. It is getting so much busier with vehicles and steady flow of traffic night and day. The rumbling of empty trucks and the braking. Some people don't even have double glazing and can't keep their windows open for the smell and the noise. Even our home shakes at times, and it's a relatively new home. Now for Maniaroto and Collegiate, their properties are also going to be affected, and I am the ex-president of Collegiate Rugby Football Club, so I can speak on that as well. So nothing has been done regarding where they go to and what happens in that area. The cost will have doubled, like the people and the traffic, from when in 2009 we started this study. So there's lots more vehicles, and including there's lots more elderly in our area now, and a lot of them are out on their molly trolleys, and it's not being helpful and assisting to them also. My belief is that you should look for another option, a ring road further out, like Milton Road. It's probably too late for Trevor's Road now that the sections are being sorted and sold out there. The ring road could meet the needs of the Lake Hood residents, because they have also increased, and there's another 150 sections out there to be sold. So I think that it's high time that everybody pulled together and tried to do what is best for our community. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Right, questions, anybody please? First up is Roger Letham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your submission. You're one of many this morning and yesterday, as you probably guess. You said that 93% at the last hearing did not agree with the location. I'm very new to this council. How many people submitted on that? Do you know?
On the last one, no, not offhand. I can't remember. Sorry.
I'm just trying to get a figure of how many people actually opposed it. Like 93% is a huge amount.
It is a huge amount.
But is it 93% of 20 people, or is it 93% of 200 people?
No, I do have those figures. I was the secretary. I did have it written, but I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you.
That's fine. Next up we have Mayor Brown.
Yeah, thanks for your submission. Just one question on you talk about the lights on Walnut Ave, they won't work and will cause a problem. Could you explain what that problem is that they'll cause?
Well, I just think because of all the schools, it would have to be taken into account, mainly the college and intermediate and the rest of the schools. As I said, there's 9 feeder schools come down onto Chalmers Avenue. I think there's possibly close to 11 little people's schools also in that area, and everybody's going to be converging at certain times of the day. So it's going to create a problem for all the traffic, and unless everything works properly, there's going to be a build-up in the Chalmers Avenue area, I believe.
Well, you're not talking about the lights that are going to go in on Walnut Ave and West Street, right by the Domain?
Yes, I'm talking about those lights, but they will affect all those areas of people.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Greer? Diane?
Just to clarify on that point that Neil was asking about, so do you see those lights at Walnut Avenue as adding to the streams of traffic that will go down past Intermediate and end up at the roundabout at
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? No. No, well, thank you very much for coming in and speaking to us, and for your submissions. Thank you. Our final submitter hasn't arrived yet, but he's not due until 12:40. So we might just have to take another wee short recess. Sorry.
Stops flashing.
Just like to welcome everyone back for a moment. As our last submitter hasn't come, we are going to close the meeting, and thank you for the submitters for coming, and we shall have you back, all those that want to come back, at 1:30 for our deliberations. So, and the councillors are going to take a lunch break. I think that's all. Thank you.